Welcome into a live edition of Falcons Today. Matthew Peterson here with you all after the NFL draft, picking up the pieces, looking at this roster, going, all right, free agency is mostly done, but it never really ends. The draft has come and gone. So let's look at this roster and let's see where are there still some holes that could be filled. So we're going to run through some free agent targets, and I'm going to update everyone on my predictions for what the depth charts look like following the NFL draft. But as always, we're going to let the audience build up for the first few minutes of our live stream. So in the meantime, shout out your city for me in the comment section. Get in the chat and let me know where you are tuning in from. I'll be giving shout outs to everyone as we already have 60 plus people hanging out with us in the first 60 seconds of our stream. I've got Swanee coming in from Lav S. Carson is in Griffin, Georgia. Think Tank is in Atlanta. Ty Man the Buckeye is in Ohio. I've got Atlanta coming in from Mr. Norman. Archangel is in College Park. Melvin's in Jonesboro. Austin is tuning in from Lexington. Jason is in San Diego. I've got Drew Dog watching from Douglasville, Georgia. Joseph is in California as well. Ryan's in Massachusetts. We're going all the way from the Pacific to the Atlantic with a stop in Atlanta along the way. Tim is in Dalton. Ben's in Louisville, Kentucky. Ian's in Kansas City, Missouri. Let me know where you're tuning in from in the chat. But let me ask you this question as we welcome our producer, Cullen Brown, on right above me. Should the Falcons sign an edge rusher? Starting to get concerned that Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris are looking at this roster, and I can partially see their point of view about, got some young guys. We just drafted 3 defensive linemen. We think Arnold Ebiketie is going to take a big step forward in year 3 as he's only gotten better and better. Lorenzo Carter is an adequate edge rusher. We're good to go. This is a solid unit. It's not going to be top 10 in the league, but it won't be bottom 10. It may be bottom 10. I mean, I don't know why we're going to all of a sudden give the Falcons credit for having good pass rushers before the season starts. It has been their weakest position as a franchise, and I think more is more. They should leave no stone unturned. They should bring in extra guys. There should be no edge rusher spared from the Atlanta Falcons search to improve the worst pass rushing units in the National Football League, in franchise history, in football history, and literally over the last 4 years in NFL history. So, I say yes. I think they should add another edge rusher. I do not feel like this room is good enough. Cullen, what do you think?
I tend to agree. Yeah, no, we talked about it all the weeks, months, days leading up to the draft.
It's been a reoccurring conversation for this fan base for years.
Yes, that, hey, you know what? Draft's a position of need. We're going to address in the first round. We know what happened. We're not here to rehash that, or maybe we will. You never know. But honestly, if you go into the season with the current Falcons edge rushers, I don't believe you're seriously trying to compete for the Super Bowl. I really don't. Because ultimately, when you're playing the game of football, there are 3 really important positions that stick out in my opinion. That's quarterback, protecting the quarterback, and getting to the quarterback. And one of those, the Falcons have not done an adequate job of addressing.
Agreed. I will kind of bring up one thing about Mr. Michael Penix. As you said, we won't rehash the 8th overall pick. So when I was getting ready for today's live stream, I was looking back at our live stream right before the draft happened. So last Wednesday. And one of the questions, as it had been a growing rumor leading up to the draft that Michael Penix was on their radar. I thought it might be on their radar for pick 43, not pick 8. But anywho, I asked you all watching, would you want the Falcons to draft Michael Penix? And everyone typed P for pass. But it's just kind of funny to me that once the pick is submitted, I understand as a sports fan you want to believe your team is making the right decisions, so you're going to talk yourself into it, right? You're going to try and look for the pros and be optimistic, but to shut down my throat for acting like it's a bad idea when you yourself did not want to do that a week ago, it's a little hypocritical. But that's okay. My job is to take the heat. That's fine. I'll stand in the middle of the paint. I'll take the charges, even if they're not called. But we do have a mailbag coming on at the end of the show, so get your questions in right now. hashtag Falcons, or Super Chat if you want to skip the line, get on screen, and support the show all in the same process. Super Chats are greatly appreciated, but if you're unable to, no problem. Hashtag Falcons, and producer Cullen will pick his favorite questions and throw them on during our live mailbag. But coming up on today's show, we got some free agent targets to look at, updated depth charts, and then that mailbag like we just talked about. So, Diego is already getting to my PrizePicks read. I don't know if any fan base, when I say fan base, any like Chat Sports YouTube channel likes the PrizePicks read more than Falcons Today fans. CLNS is engraved in all of our brains.
Yep.
We didn't pick it either. It's like with the ad agency we work with. That's their thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would have been like Falcons Chat or something like that.
Right.
But give Jason some credit. Yeah, was Jason the one that was like, my wife and I walk around our house saying, and use code CLNS. That makes me laugh. Every time I do the PrizePicks read, I think about you guys. All right, let's jump into the show, though. We've got 87 people watching already. Just 25 likes, though. Can we get to 30 likes? 5 more likes to get this plane off the ground, and then we'll start looking at some free agent targets for Atlanta, because we always see a little bit of a rush after the draft is over, where GMs go, all right, we were unable to get a guy at this position that we wanted to draft, but all of our favorite players were taken, and we didn't want to reach. So plan B was, let's sign this cheap veteran free agent. So you may see the Falcons dip their toe in the free agency pool, and I want you to know who could be on their radar. So we're at 32 likes, 94 people watching. Appreciate everyone for watching and liking the video. Matthew Petey fan. Petey, what prediction did you get right? Prediction like for the draft or just kind of in general? Trying to think of like a Falcons prediction. My mock draft had them going Dallas Turner, so that didn't happen. Didn't have them going Rook Ororo in round number 2. Just didn't see them trading up. I thought they would stick with both third rounders. But yeah, Daddy Dallas, I'll tell you what. Oh boy. If Dallas Turner comes up with a huge play for the Vikings against the Falcons when they play each other in the regular season, I'm not going to be happy about it, but I will be that asshole that says I told you so. That will happen. That will happen. I would say for the actual NFL draft, I got 11 or 12, I can't remember right now, picks right. For the player went to the right team. And we can actually, since I'm just going to brag about myself for a moment, if we extend it to round 2, like I had Cooper DeJean going to the Eagles in round 1. Yeah. But it happened in round 2. Yeah. So they get like half credit then?
Yeah, well, because
it's
kind of crazy too, the fact that Quinyon Mitchell fell all the way to 22.
Yeah.
Because I mean, honestly, if he had been there, you probably in your mind would have been like, yeah, well, obviously.
I think the best latest pick I had was Troy Fautanu going to the Steelers at 20.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I really thought the Seahawks were gonna grab him at 16, and you called it.
I did. Okay, this one I'm kind of proud of myself for. I did have the Chiefs trading up for a wide receiver. And I had the wrong Texas wide receiver. Yeah. I thought they would trade up for A.D. Mitchell. They went Xavier Worthy.
Which, by the way, him falling all the way to the 50s?
Yeah, that could be something that we look back at. I think I told you this, Colin. Kind of like when DK Metcalf fell to 64 to the Seahawks.
Last pick.
That's when we look back and go, well, that was dumb. That was just objectively like, oops, I done dropped the ball on that one. All right, let's get into it, though. We're going to kick things off with updated free agent targets for Atlanta. On today's show, I want to look at some free agent targets for the Falcons after the NFL draft, as you tend to see a flurry of free agent signings when the draft is over because teams know what their remaining needs are after the draft, and they may dip in the veteran free agency pool to kind of fill out and round out their 90-man roster. Now, in my opinion, here are the top 4 needs for the Falcons in order. No surprise, number 1 is edge rusher. Number 2, and I'm going to explain why in more detail in the video, I have wide receiver. At number 3, I have cornerback, and then at 4, I've got safety. But let's refresh everyone's memories on the picks the Falcons made in this past draft. Michael Penix in round 1, then Rook Ororo in round 2 out of Clemson. Bralen Trice and Brandon Dorlus come from the Pac-12 to Atlanta. JT Bertrand from Notre Dame. I think he's going to be a really good special teamer in his first year. And then a couple of skill position guys for the first time late in day 3. Bama running back Jace McClellan, and then Illinois wide receiver Casey Washington. And then finally, a bit of a hometown pick, maybe a pander pick. Who said it? I did. Georgia's defensive tackle Zion Logue. I'm afraid that they're not going to add an edge rusher. This is kind of giving me vibes of a team that says they're going to do a whole lot, like the Cowboys. We're all in, and then my ass, like, no, you're not. And I have a feeling Atlanta, and I can kind of see where they get to this point, where they look at their front 5 and go, we've got some good, young, athletic pieces. Arnold Ebiketie, he's taken a big step forward this year. We drafted 3 guys on the defensive line, Rook Ororo, Brandon Dorless, and Bralen Trice, Zach Harrison, a third-round pick last year. We like our young core, and I can understand from a coach's perspective, betting on yourself that you're going to develop these young guys. But from a fan's perspective, can you not? Because you should definitely add a free agent edge rusher. Now, unfortunately, there's not a lot of great options remaining. And we looked over this list earlier in the week, but I'll remind everyone of the top free agent pass rushers, outside linebackers, defensive ends, all kind of lumped into one. Now, if I had to pick one, I think Bud Dupree would make a lot of sense. He played with Atlanta last year. Him and Calais Campbell were tied for the team lead in sacks with 6.5. Now, Calais Campbell's spot has kind of been occupied. They drafted a couple of guys at his same position, like Brandon Dorless, and Rook Ororo is kind of similar-ish. And then they signed James Smith-Williams from the Commanders in free agency. But they haven't really added a true outside linebacker, which Bud Dupree plays. Another guy worth monitoring is Yannick Ngakoue, the guy who lived out of a suitcase for much of his career, hopping all over the league. Last year with the Bears, he signed with Chicago very late in August, and he put up 4 sacks and a bit of an underwhelming season. He only played 13 games. He broke his ankle, and then coincidentally, on the day I filmed this video during our live show on Thursday, a video surfaces of him working out saying, my ankle is 100%. So Yannick Ngakoue's definitely got the best long-term resume of all the free agent edge rushers out there. You can see he put together a lot of straight 8+ sack seasons. So I'll turn it over to you. Should the Falcons sign an edge rusher, or do you feel like, hey, this group may not have a lot of league-wide recognition, but I'm a big believer in Bralen Trice. I think Arnold Ebiketie can be a 10-sack guy player this year. I think Zach Harrison's going to go from 3 sacks to 5 or 6, and we're going to see everyone bump up. Plus, Grady Jarrett's coming back from a torn ACL. This is a young room that doesn't need some veteran presence to maybe stunt some of the growth of the younger players. I think if they're serious about being playoff contenders, which the Kirk Cousins signing signals to me that they are, they should go get a veteran edge rusher. So I would type in a Y for yes. Now, the next group I want to look at is the wide receiver room. And I have them number 2 for a very analytical-driven reason. And that is they've got 3 starting wide receivers, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, and then Rondale Moore, who has been a disappointment of a second-rounder. But everyone's super upbeat about it because it cost you Desmond Ridder, and Desmond Ridder was kind of just a dead man walking at that point. But when you look at the actual production these guys put up last year, I'm a big believer in Drake London. I think he's going to have an awesome year with Kirk Cousins throwing him the rock. But Darnell Mooney comes off a 400-yard season. Rondale Moore comes off an even worse season, 352 yards. And the two of them combined for just 2 touchdowns. Now, last year with Arthur Smith, they could have gotten by with this room. I am a big believer in they will not get by this year if this room does not see an improvement made to it. Because I am looking at the Falcons' 2024 offense. And if it's anything like what Zach Robinson from the Rams came from or Kirk Cousins from the Vikings came from, it's going to feature a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, 11 personnel. If you don't know what that means, 11 personnel is a reflection of how many running backs and how many tight ends are on the field. So 11 personnel means 1 running back, one tight end. 12 personnel is 1 running back, 2 tight ends. And then the remaining skill players are wide receivers. So in this case, 3 wide receivers, which the Rams last year ran more than anyone else in the NFL did 93% of the time. So it's a pretty fair bet that the Falcons are going to be trotting out 3 wide receivers very often. And if that is the case, they absolutely need to add another wide receiver. Rondale Moore is not prepared to be that major of a focal point of an offense. Darnell Mooney is a guy that I am high on as a player, and I think he can do a good job filling in as a wide receiver too. But I really believe that after that, there is a scary little amount of depth. And if an injury pops up, you've got Kaderil Hodge getting serious snaps for the first time in his career, and you're just not going to have the right guys at the right spots for how this offense is supposed to run and has been designed to run. So here are the top 10 free agent wide receivers. I'm filming this on Thursday. Maybe like Tyler Boyd gets signed by the time you're watching this, but if anyone else gets signed, just roll with the punches. There's not a lot of great options at this stage here. Hunter Renfrow could maybe get back to the way he played a few years ago. Allen Robinson can't separate to save his life anymore. OBJ and Michael Thomas are just names at this point of their careers. MVS is good for one drop deep, but he's super fast. Russell Gage, a familiar face. Zay Jones, DJ Chark, and Mecole Hardman round out the list. But I want to do a little bit of a deeper look. I'm not just looking for any wide receiver. I'm looking for a wide receiver that fits what the Falcons wide receiver room needs. And what I looked at were, all right, we know Drake London is an outside X wide receiver. Darnell Mooney last year for the Bears, he played 65% of his snaps in the slot. Rondale Moore played 68% of his snaps coming from the slot. However, I don't think either one of these guys are really suited to be slot wide receivers, specifically Darnell Mooney. And if Atlanta puts him in that role, I think they're going to see more of what Darnell Mooney did his last 2 years in Chicago compared to the first 2 years in Chicago, where he only played 33% of his snaps in the slot and had the best 2 years of his career, putting up 8 touchdowns and 1,600 yards. It was only when the Bears moved him to a slot role instead of being an outside wide receiver that we saw a major dip in his production. So for that reason, I think you could take a look at maybe a guy like Tyler Boyd, who with the Bengals kind of played a little bit all over, but he's probably just the best pure receiver remaining. However, Hunter Renfrow is a true slot wide receiver. So if Atlanta is looking for the best slot wide receiver, he could be a name that comes up on their radar. Zay Jones is another guy that's had some success, right? Former second-round pick by the Bills 2 years ago, had 800-plus yards and 5 touchdowns. So there's slim pickings options at this point, but I think the Falcons need to add a slot wide receiver because forcing Darnell Mooney into that role, it didn't work in Chicago. So why would you pay a guy $39 million to put him in a spot where he wasn't at his best? Let him be an outside wide receiver. Go get a true slot wide receiver. Maybe their plan is to put Kyle Pitts exclusively at slot, and he'll be a tight end, although who are we kidding? He's not really a tight end in this offense. But I still think Atlanta would be wise to add another slot guy. Now, before we go to the next positional need for the Falcons, Michael Penix jerseys and Kirk Cousins jerseys are available with our friends over at Fanatics. So if you want to get a Cousins jersey, go to chatsports.com/Cousins. Or if you want to get a Michael Penix jersey, go to chatsports.com/Penix. As soon as Michael Penix's number is announced, even if you order the jersey today, Fanatics will ship that jersey out to you with the correct number put on the back. So get yourself a brand new Atlanta Falcons jersey today. I put both of those links in the comments and description of today's video. Now let's look at the third positional need for the Falcons remaining, and that is cornerback in my eyes. They signed veterans Antonio Hamilton and Kevin King leading up to the draft, which I said at the time, this could be a sign as to how they may not go corner in the draft. And sure enough, they did not take a cornerback in the draft, but there are some question marks opposite of A.J. Terrell, who, by the way, himself is in a contract year. But at this point, you're not looking for a long-term corner. You're looking for a Band-Aid for 2024. If you don't think Clark Phillips or D. Alford or Mike Hughes or anyone else is up for the job of being an every-down starter opposite of Terrell. So here are some of the best free agent corners left. There are some good names like Xavien Howard, Xavien Howard, Stephon Gilmore. Those are two good corners from last year. J.C. Jackson got paid and then kind of just disappeared. Adoree Jackson, former first-round pick, if I remember correctly, he stunk it up last year with the Giants, but he's had some good seasons in his career. Cam Sutton from Tennessee went to Pittsburgh and then went to the Lions. Good with the Steelers, not so good with the Lions. Maybe if he comes back closer to home in the Southeast, he could kind of get back to his old ways with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Patrick Peterson served as a overall DB for the Steelers last year at corner and safety, so some versatility as he gets towards the end of his career. Steven Nelson was really good last year with the Texans. I'm not really sure why he's still a free agent. And then Ahkello Witherspoon, who we'll look at closer, has a Raheem Morris connection. But the best of the bunch in my eyes is probably either Xavien Howard or Stephon Gilmore. More likely Gilmore than Howard, although Howard did have that incredible, which I don't know how we don't talk about it more, 10 interception season back in 2020. But Gilmore, the last few years, I think is still playing at a very high level despite Father Time knocking on the door. I mean, a season ago for the Cowboys, Trevon Diggs goes down mid-year with a torn ACL in practice. Gilmore becomes their CB1, and he puts up really solid numbers. 13 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, and 1 forced fumble. But Ahkello Witherspoon may be the cheaper option of all three guys, and he's got some familiarity with Morris and Jimmy Lake. Started 17 games last year for LA, career high in interceptions and pass breakups. So I know the Falcons have already made some veteran additions to the cornerback room, but if their plan was to make a splash in the draft and no cornerback they really loved fell to them when they were on the clock, maybe Morris circles back on a familiar face. Now, before we get to the next free agent list of targets for the Falcons, make sure to subscribe because you do not want to miss me embarrassing myself. We'll be doing our Dallas Turner punishment episode in a few short weeks here. So hit the sub button down below. That way you can tune in for what's going to be some of the best YouTube content since like Charlie bit my finger probably. Now let's look at the safety spot here because this is fourth on my list because I know the fan base wants to see another addition opposite of Jesse Bates, but you don't see teams spend big on safeties. Like usually you see them get one good safety, but not get too expensive safeties. And I think Atlanta is much more content with DeMarco Hellams and Richie Grant than maybe your average fan would think they are. But it is worth noting that last year with the Rams, when Raheem Morris was in charge of the defense, they had a lot of safeties on the field, right? Jordan Fuller played 93% of the snaps. Russ Yeast played 70%. John Johnson played 45%. Quentin Lake played 40%. You had 4 guys playing nearly half of the snaps, if not more. So Atlanta could be looking to trot out a lot of 3 safety looks, and that may mean adding an extra safety. But I know Richie Grant started the year off as this team starter, not missing a snap, and the former second rounder saw his role just go 180 in the second half of the year. But I think Raheem Morris is much more upbeat about Grant than the previous coaching regime was. Morris said, "I told Richie when I got here that I was wrong on him. I didn't think he was as good as a player as he is. And he's played really well and does some good things, tackles strong. I was in another place, obviously, when I evaluated him. But he's shown me a lot of really good things on tape." So if Atlanta is looking to make an addition at the safety room, although you can kind of see by now why I have him at the 4th spot on the pecking order because I think the Falcons like Bates, Hellams, and Grant. Here are some notable free agent safeties. Maybe the Falcons like Grant and Hellams, but if Jamal Adams or Justin Simmons, Eddie Jackson, or Quandre Diggs kind of cut their price in half, well, maybe when Atlanta was talking to one of these guys back in March or April, they liked them, but not to the tune of, say, like $10 million. But fast forward to May, June, July, August, and if these guys call Atlanta back and go, "I'll play on a 1-year, $5 million contract," the Falcons go, "Yeah, we like Grant and Helms, but we sure like Simmons or Jackson a whole lot more for $5 million." Now, if I had to pick one of these guys to keep an eye on, it's got to be Eddie Jackson, right? The Atlanta Falcons Director of Player Personnel, Assistant GM, Ryan Pace, who was the Bears GM for a handful of years, is now in Atlanta, where we've seen a lot of former Bears come down to play. And Eddie Jackson could be someone that catches Atlanta's eyes because he did play so well to begin his career. 10 interceptions, 3 touchdowns, 26 pass breakups. He was truly one of the best safeties in football. And then, unfortunately, kind of fell off a cliff. suffered some injuries, but he played very well, I thought, the last 2 years for the Bears, and I still think he is a starting safety in this league, just not for what the Bears were paying him to be. But maybe the Falcons can give him an offer where he goes, yeah, I'll take a big pay cut, reunite with some familiar faces like Eddie Goldman and Ryan Pace, and I'll come down to Atlanta and join a 3-safety trio with Jesse Bates, Helms, and Grant. So who do you want the Falcons to sign? Give me a name in the comment section below of the 40 guys we just talked about. Could it be one of them? Could it be someone I left off the list? Drop a name for me in the comment section. And make sure to subscribe as well. If you enjoy our free content, hit the sub button. Really helps the channel grow, of course. And the more subscribers we get here at Chat Sports, well, the more studio space I can get to give you guys content. Hit the sub button down below. Austin says Justin Simmons. Melvin says Justin Simmons. No one's got more interceptions since 2016 when Simmons entered the league than Justin Simmons. I don't think any team signing Justin Simmons can look at it as a bad signing. He's an incredible safety. Unfortunately, I think he's just victim to bad timing, where Denver needed to get some guys off their books, and the safety position, the safety market dried up. And there was just not a big need, as a lot of teams moved on from good safeties because they just felt like it wasn't worth what they were paying them. So if Simmons joins Atlanta or anywhere else for that matter, I think they're getting an incredible Pro Bowl caliber player. And him and Jesse Bates together would form the best safety duo in the National Football League, without a doubt. Yep. What's that? Yeah. Who we got in the chat here? Austin says Kirby just got a 10-year deal. I did get the notification that Kirby Smart got an extension. I just didn't read anything beyond the headline. So what are the details of it for Kirby Smart? 10-year, making the highest paid coach in college football. What would that be, like 10 years, $100 million? What was Harbaugh getting paid? Harbaugh was getting paid. He was getting paid like 11, or maybe it's a 10-year, $120 million. Austin says 130, so $13 million a season. Yeah. Very well deserved. It's kind of funny looking back at it. I mean, as a Tennessee grad, I don't have much sympathy for the Georgia Bulldogs. I know it's not going to go over well with much of the viewers here, but even I can say, like, Georgia getting left out of the playoffs last year was so stupid. Like, they've lost one game in the last 3 years, and it came to Alabama in the SEC championship, and they're like, they're gone. Like,
yeah, they're out of there.
Come on, like.
What are we doing?
I wasn't bummed at all for the Bulldogs, but they were one of the best 4 teams in the nation last year.
Yeah.
And that kind of got just swept under the rug real quick because people were more up in arms about Florida State.
Which, by the way, Florida State. I mean, granted, a lot of their players kind of declared for the draft and play in the bowl game, but there was no chance they were taking out.
I'm a big believer in it's the best 4 teams in the country. And that might hurt some feelings. And that's kind of why the entire thing was flawed. And it's honestly a miracle that the playoff committee never had an issue with getting the best 4 teams in because one conference always self-destructed. But this year that didn't happen. Yeah. So it was tough.
It was crazy. And it's ironic that it was in the last year of that format. So.
All right. Next up on the show, updated depth charts. We're going to run through every single position room for the Falcons following the free agency, big splashes, and then the draft, of course, and kind of see where everything stands for everyone that's just kind of checking in for the first time to see, all right, who are the 22 starters for this team? Mr. Brown, are we ready to jump into it?
We are.
We got 200 people watching, 55 likes. Can we get to 65 likes, 10 more likes, and then we'll start our next segment here, updated depth charts. Matthew Petey fan, QB room went from Heineke and Ritter to Cousins and Penix. Dude, I think it's funny that people are thinking about what Kirk Cousins was thinking when Penix got drafted. Yeah. What was Taylor Heineke thinking? Right. He went from having a cushy backup job to, damn it, I'm definitely filing for unemployment. Yeah. Do you think NFL players could technically file for unemployment? I don't see why not.
I would say I don't see why not either.
Yeah. I think they'd have to.
I would be very interested to see what that unemployment check looks like.
I would think. Yeah, that's a good question too.
I will say also, down at the bottom of the screen, use #Falcons to get in our next mailbag. I'll pick out some of the best ones, but also, if you want to super chat and guarantee that your question makes it onto the show, that works too. And I greatly appreciate, or helps us out, me and PD, and honestly might give me a bigger square to appear on the live stream. So
Mr. Jose R.A. says subscribed since October 11th, 2022. I like how he got that tattooed on him.
Yeah.
Never forget the day I joined Falcons Today. October 11th, 2022. So coming up on 18 months about. Good for you, Mr. Jose. Appreciate you hanging out with us.
that was still at Ryan's time, wasn't it?
That was Mr. Marcus Mariota.
Oh, that was yeah, that's right. It was
Yeah.
Mariota then. It was, okay.
Mr. Marcus Mariota.
You're right.
All right, let's get into some updated depth charts for the Atlanta Falcons. On today's episode, we're going to run through the updated depth charts for the Falcons after the NFL draft. I'll give you guys my opinion as to who the current 22 starters are if a game was tomorrow. But of course, there are some position battles to watch for, and a lot could change throughout training camp and even maybe a little bit of mini camp and OTAs. But I just want to set a primer down for everyone the Falcons picked in the NFL draft that have joined the depth charts. And I'm not going to, we'll keep it a surprise, but I don't envision any of these guys being week 1 starters. Now, in addition to the draft, they also made some notable signings in free agency. Of course, you have got the big names like Kirk Cousins and Darnell Mooney. But Ray McLeod for special teams, Charlie Woerner to back up Kyle Pitts, Kentavious Street comes back after being traded from the Eagles to join that defensive line rotation. Same with James Smith-Williams. Eddie Goldman is back for now. We'll see how long it lasts. And then Antonio Hamilton and Kevin King, some veteran presence in the secondary. But let's start in the quarterback room, where there's really no surprises here. It goes Cousins, Penix, and then Heinicke. And Heinicke, in my eyes, is battling with Illinois UDFA quarterback Paddock for that third quarterback spot that I think with Cousins coming back from an Achilles may be a 53-man roster spot instead of being a practice squad spot. Then we have the running back room where, again, no real surprises at all. It goes Bijan, Tyler Algier. Avery Williams is back. That's really good to see with no Cordero Patterson. We'll see what Williams looks like, but they did draft Jace McClellan. He may push with Carlos Washington for a third RB spot on their roster. But all eyes are, of course, on Bijan Robinson, who last year showed so much potential and so many, flash plays. And now it's just about being a consistent 3-down back, which that is the expectation for a running back that goes in the top 10 of the draft. Wide receiver room, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, and Rondale Moore I have as your starting 3 wide receivers, with Kadarius Hodge, Ray McLeod, and Washington kind of being the first 3 guys off the bench. And then some smaller reserve contracts that were signed like Josh Ali and Chris Blair competing for a roster spot, but more likely a practice squad spot. But the top 3 guys, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Rondale Moore, there's pressure on them because these 3 guys are going to be on the field a whole lot more than they were in previous Falcons offenses. They're going to be seeing a lot more snaps, and so they're going to be tested a lot, and that's going to put a little bit more strain on them. So it's going to be really important for Atlanta to have good depth at the wide receiver position. Tight end-wise, the Falcons picked up Kyle Pitts' 5th-year option. No surprise on my end on that front. Charlie Woerner comes over from the 49ers, a homecoming for him back to the Peach State. And then John Fitzpatrick, and then they've got a UDFA out of Oklahoma, Austin Stogner, as the 4th tight end, who, lucky for him, he joins a very shallow tight end room, so he'll have a really good opportunity to try and compete for a 53-man roster spot with Fitzpatrick. But like I said, Kyle Pitts is the main attraction in this room, and I'm very excited to see what this new Falcons offense with Kirk Cousins and Zach Robinson have in store for Kyle Pitts and his role on this team. Hopefully, we see much more of Pitts in the red zone as, I'm not going to say names, but certain guys that had no business getting more touches in the red zone outshined Kyle Pitts last year. As for the offensive line, you got your usual starting 5, and this is their best unit, I would say. Their offensive line is well intact. Jake Matthews, Matthew Bergeron, Drew Dahlman, Chris Lindstrom, and Caleb McGarry. To me, it's a top 5 offensive line in the National Football League. If we're getting nitpicky, though, let's take a closer look at Caleb McGarry for a moment. He's probably the weakest-ish of the bunch. But my concern is Caleb McGarry was a really good fit for Arthur Smith's offense, which was predicated on the run. And that is reflected in McGary's PFF grades last year being a much better run blocker than a pass blocker. However, with Kirk Cousins in town, they're going to be passing the ball way more than they were last year. And now Caleb McGarry may not be such a good fit for this offense anymore. So expect a lot of pass protection reps going on in training camp for guys like McGarry and Jake Matthews, who for the last few years have been a run-first mindset. Now it's a pass-first mindset. But grade the Falcons' offense for me. Give it a Madden grade, A, B, C, D, or F. I'd give their offense a B+. The only question mark I have is the wide receiver position because they're going to be using so many 3 wide receiver sets. Are Darnell Mooney and Rondale Moore ready to have that big of a role where they weren't in that same type of spot the last few seasons with their respective teams? So I'll give it a B+. Let me know what grade you would give the Falcons offense down below. Now, next up on the show, we're going to look at the other side of the football's depth charts, the defensive side. But before we do, I do want to tell all of our amazing viewers about all of your favorite sponsor, PrizePicks. Daily fantasy made easy, where all you've got to do is pick 2 to 6 players and then choose more or less on their projected stats. You can turn $10 into a whole lot more if you go 6 for 6, 5 for 5. And plus, the best part about PrizePicks in my eyes, or one of the best parts, is the easy withdrawal process. That way, you're not trying to get your money from like Lithuania. But with PrizePicks, it's super simple and user-friendly. I've already put down some season-long stat projections for guys that went in the NFL draft. I invite you to play along with me. I'm going with the more on Caleb Williams' passing yards for the Chicago Bears at 3,400 and change. He's got Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Rome Odunze to throw to. I like that. I also like the less on J.J. McCarthy's passing yards. I don't think he's even going to start half the season. I think it's Sam Darnold, and I don't think McCarthy, even if he did start all year, would get 3,100 yards. And then I'll take the Malik Neighbors more on his receiving yards. So download PrizePicks today and use code, say it with me, CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. I have put all that information in the comments and description of today's video, but shout out to PrizePicks, the best spot. Get started today. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Defensive line is crowded, right? We saw some free agent signings with James Smith-Williams, Eddie Goldman, Kentavious Street, draft picks with Brandon Dorlus, Rook Ororo, Zion Logue. I have Zach Harrison, though, starting because it's obvious who the other 2 starters are. And I've kind of gone back and forth between him and James Smith-Williams. But ultimately, I'm going to err on the homegrown 3rd-round pick last year getting the slight nod to open up training camp. Zach Harrison missed Week 18 against the Saints, unfortunately, to close out the year. But the 3 weeks prior to that, he was really revving up his engines. 11 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 4 quarterback hits. So for now, I'm going to pencil in Zach Harrison as the starting defensive end alongside Onyemata and Jarrett, but that is definitely a battle to watch for in training camp. Now the linebackers. I've got Arnold Ebiketie, Kaden Ellis, Nate Landman, and Lorenzo Carter. The only surprise here is I've got Nate Landman starting over Troy Anderson, who was the team's original starter last year, 2nd-round pick out of Montana State. Super high expectations going into 2023. Then an injury against the Lions cuts his season way short. And Nate Landman stepped in, and the guy balled out. 110 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. I know that a lot of the buzz coming out of Flowery Branch is Troy Anderson's going to get his starting job back again. But you know what? I'm not so sold on that. I think with the way Nate Landman played last year, it should be his job to lose, which is why I want to propose something. And this really is for Raheem Morris and everyone watching at the Falcons facility. Why not both? Why not Troy Anderson and Nate Landman start? And you kick Kaden Ellis to outside linebacker and have him go opposite of Arnold Ebiketie and get your best 4 linebackers on the field. I know that's not Kaden Ellis' true position, but he had 4 sacks last year and 7 sacks the year before coming from an inside linebacker position. I'm in favor of get the best 4 guys on the field And sure, some guys may not be in their natural position, but I think they may take a little bit of a baseball approach, right? Move a second baseman to shortstop. Sure, it may not be what they played growing up, but is it all that different? Kind of, but not really at the same time. So this would be my proposal for the Atlanta Falcons linebacker room. Now, what's your confidence level in this Falcons defense? Before we look at their DBs, right now, where's it at? Scale it 1 to 10 for me in the comment section below. Now, as for the cornerbacks, I've got AJ Terrell starting, of course, and then I've got Clark Phillips and D. Alford. A lot of people have Mike Hughes penciled in as a starter over Phillips or Alford, but I don't really see why. Sure, one of them's a first-round pick, and the other guy was a UDFA who was with the Winnipeg CFL team not too long ago. But when you just take where they were drafted and their names out of it, and you just look at the production last year, is anyone going to argue that D. Alford was not the best of all three? I mean, PFF certainly had him ranked as the best of all three. They had him ranked 38th out of 127 qualifying cornerbacks. So to me, I think you put Clark Phillips at CB2 and you stick D. Alford at that nickel position, and then Mike Hughes can be the first cornerback off the bench. And then finally, I'll go in the safety room here with DeMarco Hellum starting next to Jesse Bates over Richie Grant, the way it ended last year when the 7th-round pick out of Alabama, who shined all training camp and preseason long, eventually replaced the former 2nd-round pick Grant as this team's starting safety. But I think we may see a lot of 3 safety looks because that's what Raheem Morris and the Rams did last year anyway. And to wrap it all up, as for the special teams core, pretty chalk here, right? Bradley Pinion, Younghoe Koo, Liam McCullough, Ray McLeod as your punt and kick returner, with Avery Williams also in the mix, although I think the McLeod signing was primarily motivated for special teams, not for wide receiver reasoning. But that will do it for us on today's show. Let me know what you thought of today's episode. Always appreciate those of you that watch all the way to the end of the video. So if you are still watching, scroll on down, put the emoji that's the most frequently used emoji on your phone or computer. That way I can know where the end of the video crew is. Super chat rolling in from Matty Ghost. Let's go, Matty! I used to bet against Illinois on my parlay cards. Paddock is a Ritter type but short. Gets passes batted down a lot. Throws a stupid interception. He won't make this team, LOL. Yeah, I don't really disagree. Like, I was not super over the moon. Like, that sounds mean. When they signed him as a UDFA, I was like, I thought they might go for, like, a Sam Hartman. Like, a guy I actually think could push Heineke for a job. I do appreciate how you picked your team you bet against. Everyone's got that squad. For me, this year in baseball, I know the popular selection were the A's. I was on the Rockies sucking from day one, which isn't that hot of a take, but that's paid off dividends every single day. Just hammer the opposing money line. In football, this is a slight detour here. Had a roommate out of college who did not watch football at all. Could probably name like half the NFL teams.
Is this the one that picked the Jets all the time?
Yeah, so he was my roommate. He did not care about football at all. He was a big church goer, so every Sunday he'd go to church, and I was on the couch. Church was Scott Hansen. That was my god on Sunday. I was watching Red Zone. So he'd come back, and I tried to get him to watch football with me, and I was like, hey, dude, how about this? How about you make a bet? That way you have a rooting interest. And he's like, no, I'm not going to gamble. I don't want to lose my money. I'm like, no. My money. If it loses, I lose. If it wins, you win. No risk to you, just reward. He's like, well, I can't miss on that. He's like, I don't know who to bet on. And I was like, by the way, this was the 2020 season.
It was the year before Trevor Lawrence.
This was the 2020 season. And I was like, just bet against the Jets. It cannot go wrong. So, like, week 2, he bets against the Jets. Doesn't watch the game. He just comes back home from church. And he's like, did the Jets win? I can't remember if I even picked them. I'm like, no, they lost. He's like, oh, cool. Some weeks go by, and he starts to get more invested in it. Dude's knocking on my door Sunday morning at 8 a.m., coming in with a whole parlay. He's got over-unders. He's got spreads, money line sprinkled in, 3, 4, 5 deep parlay. And I'm like, what happened to you? I have made a monster.
Yeah, you corrupted him.
So he keeps going against the Jets. And the Jets, if you remember the 2020 season, did not win a game all year until week 15, 14,
against the Rams,
where they shocked the Rams in LA, and he comes home from church. By the way, at this point, he's no longer going to like the youth hangout session after church. He's going for the minimum time and racing home to watch the second half of the noon games with me. Flies in, and he's like, what's going on in the Jets game? And I'm like, I don't know how to tell you this, but there's a shocker developing in LA right now, and the Jets are winning. And the moment the Jets won that game, he gave up gambling for good. So I created an addict, and then the Jets got him off of it.
Yeah, only the Jets.
So that's my Jets story. Matty Ghost, really appreciate your super chat. Next one rolling in here from Feisty Falcon fan, Triple F. Thanks for all you guys do. Really appreciate that. Really do appreciate that. Thank you so much, Colin and I. Well, I'll speak for Colin here. We love our jobs. It's a blast to talk and hang out with you guys live like this once a week. But the bigger privilege is like coming in every single day going, all right, what do we want to talk about today? What do our viewers want to hear about? And that's like the biggest like challenge is like trying to figure out when it's a bit of a slow news day. All right, what do they want to hear about? So I really appreciate all the kind words. And believe me, a lot of credit has to go to Colin. Everything you see on screen right now, my hands are here. It's not me pushing buttons. It is Colin who is pulling all the ropes behind the scenes. Like this next one. Coming up, we've got our mailbag next on screen. So hashtag Falcons if you want to get involved in our mailbag. If you have a question related to the Falcons, the NFL, or anything under the sun, hashtag Falcons. Or if you want to skip the line, like we got 2 super chats already today, you can guarantee your question gets on screen for all of our thousands of viewers to see by super chatting, and it supports the channel at the same time as a $20 super chat just roll in. Let's go. Trey Dukes, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, it's not very nice. Your takes have been awful. This insane idea that the Falcons aren't serious about contending because they didn't draft a rookie pass rusher who almost never experienced success until years later is a terrible idea. Well, I appreciate the super chat, Trey. I'll open up right there. I don't really remember quoting myself saying Atlanta's not serious. I just think it's not a good effort to support your 2024 roster by going quarterback in round 1. Like the common example given is, well, the Packers did it. And I don't think that's a good example to make for justifying going with Mecole Penix at pick number 8. One, Penix and Love could not be different prospects. One played 6 years of college football. The other was 21 years old. So I don't think that's an apples-to-apples comparison. The Falcons and Packers were in very different situations. Atlanta was picking top 10. Green Bay was picking 26. If Jordan Love was a bust, it's tough to find surefire things at the back end of round number 1. Round number 10 top 10 has a much higher hit rate. So I don't like comparing the 2 quarterbacks nor the 2 teams. Plus, Atlanta just signed Kirk Cousins to that monster contract. I understand what their thinking is of we can have our quarterback now and our quarterback for the future, but I don't think Mecole Penix should be a pick for the future. Mecole Penix is ready to play right now. He's about to turn 24 years old. I don't think you need to stick him on the shelf. So I understand where you're like, dude, they got a quarterback long-term and short-term. What's not to like? I feel like you should have invested in the short term with a top 10 pick. If the Falcons had the 26th pick in the draft, I think my reaction to that pick is drastically different, right? Well, it's tough to find sure things at the end of round 1. If you think Mecole Penix is the guy that, okay, like we can roll the dice on it. But top 10, you have your pick of the litter. Like you get to pick the first defensive player off the board. That's where I just don't see eye to eye with that decision. But Trey, I do appreciate the super chat and the very kind words in it too.
Also, one thing to add to that, and I'll defend you, PD, on this. So, yes, right, you've made 3 big predictions, haven't gone your way. That happens.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But also, we get to really see, and it's not, and people that are saying, oh, PD, you're wrong, this, da. Yes, but also no, right? Because we have to still wait for the actual players to play on the field for them to really know, hey, was this right? Like, we're going to see Dallas Turner, and, well, I guess maybe at some point Mecole Penix on the field. And we'll see if those are right. we'll see Raheem Morris coach this team versus Bill Belichick. We'll see if Bill Belichick gets back out there. I highly doubt that we've seen the last time of him coaching. And then Justin Fields, again, they declined his fifth-year option today. We'll see. Now Kirk Cousins is coming in, so obviously, that one might be a little bit different. But ultimately, there's still time for those decisions to see really kind of the outcome. So I'll defend PD on that one. Give him some time.
Trey, I do appreciate the super chat. Thank you for watching. Grand Limousine, what's going on, bud? Long time no see. PD, thanks for bring us all things Falcons. Just like Grand Limousine, you are the greatest. I love this guy's super chats. I mean, he's just spending $10 on, not free ads, but, $10 ads. And that's not the worst business strategy in the world. And also, his reads, they always read like a sponsor in, a baseball broadcast.
Yes.
Your relief pitcher is brought in by Grand Limousine. Get to your mound in style thanks to Grand Limousine. I just love the mindset of, we're going to capitalize on the viewers of Falcons today. But Grand Limousine, thank you so much. And hey, the next time you need a nice ride in style in the Atlanta area, I know who to recommend. It's these guys right here. Trey Dukes with another $5 super chat. Still the best Falcons content on YouTube, though. Wow, that was a ballet of emotions. We went from one end to the other. But Trey, I do appreciate it. The funny thing about, going 0 for 3 on Belichick, Fields, and Dallas Turner is I'd rather go 0 for 3 than just go 0 for 0 for. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yep.
I've got no issue with being wrong. I'd rather be wrong and remembered than just stand up here and go I don't know what they're going to do at 8. Dude, give a fucking opinion.
Yep.
That is my job, I feel like. It's not fun for you guys to tune into a guy that just comes up here and goes they could go with Belichick, but maybe they'll go with Morris. I can't say. I don't know. I'm not saying things as I'm hearing right now from Flowery Branch. I'm saying things as in my eyes, this is what I think they're going to do. And if I'm wrong, I'll wear it. That's what I'm going to do in my punishment episode. But I'd rather give you guys an opinion and be wrong than give you no opinion at all. Grand Limousine with another $20 super chat. Let's go, Grand Limousine, or a $20 super chat. I'm telling you guys, the next time you've got a big event and you need to go from Decatur to Buckhead or anywhere else around Atlanta, these are the guys.
Yeah.
I hope you do that route too, by the way. Otherwise, I just made an empty promise.
Yeah. I mean, hey, if you want to go to, Mercedes-Benz in style.
Oh, you want to pull up in style? Let me add on to that. Pull up and leave in style.
Absolutely. He also mentioned thanks, PD, in the chat. So.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Grand Limousine, thank you. Thank you so much. Now, next up on the super chats just don't stop. We got a little back and forth game between Grand Limousine and Trey Dukes. Balls in your court, Grand Limousine. That's fair. Besides, getting roasted builds character. Oh, I hope no one thinks that the people that say mean things about me in the comments make me cry at night. No, I'm a little bit of a sicko where I kind of like the mean comments because that means you guys care, and I'd rather you guys care than not care at all. If you don't care, then what is this all about? If I'm the punching bag, let me be the punching bag, right? It's kind of like that one scene. I don't know if anyone's seen the movie, or you should if you haven't. Miracle on Ice, where Coach Herb Brooks is such a dickhead because he's trying to get all the players to hate him so they don't have time to hate each other. I will be that guy, the boogeyman, if that means we have a place to come hang out and talk about the Falcons. JN with a $10 and another super chat.
We are getting them in today.
This mailbag is never getting off the ground. JN with a $10 super chat. Thanks for mentioning Kaden Ellis at Edge. I made a long post about it on your last video. Remember, he was drafted at Edge, so he'll be a natural. JN, I don't remember. Maybe I haven't gotten to that comment yet. Because I think I do have a pretty decent track history of giving credit where credit is due. So I promise I didn't see your idea and just try and pass it off as mine. But great minds think alike. So JN, thank you so much for the super chat and for having a good head on your shoulders. Because I think we're onto something. I think we may have to write some letters to Raheem Morris to get this idea in his head. I also loved, by the way, as we got a whole bunch of super chats rolling in. Just give me one moment on this here. Over the NFL draft weekend, I kind of listened to a handful of GMs and coaches talk. And they all casually slipped in how they do listen to the outside noise building up to the draft. They do listen. We have news?
A little. It's kind of it's semi.
For who?
Well, it's a former Falcon.
Okay.
Bills are signing former Panthers and Falcons free agent linebacker Dion Jones to a 1-year deal.
Good for Dion.
Yeah, just wanted to point that out. I saw Falcons in there. I was like, I got to say it.
I like Dion. Traded to the Browns and then to the Panthers. I think, did he go to the Giants last year? No, I think he was just a Panther last year. Where was I? Oh, yes. There were a handful of GMs and coaches that were on podcasts and being interviewed, and they were asked, do you listen and read the mock drafts? And they're kind of honest in that, there's some mock drafters we like more than others, but they do listen. And I've got a feeling if your job is to be a GM, how could it not creep into you when you're sitting at your desk at lunch to throw on a Falcons YouTube channel to see, all right, who does this fat ass think we should take? And all right, I'll give you my suggestion, Raheem. You did not take me up on it, though. Grand Limousine, PD and Colin for president. Colin, if we were, the duo, what would be our first order of business?
Ooh.
I've got one.
Okay, go for it.
I am blacking out all blackouts for sporting websites MLB TV, packages, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. No more blackouts.
Okay.
That's a crime against humanity.
That's one.
That's my first order of operation.
For me, mandatory holiday after Super Bowl.
Oh, okay. See, now you're president and I'm VP. That you just won up my idea right there.
That's just that is my biggest. I think it's my biggest one in sports. That if I could just have anything change, it would be.
Can I tell you something that I would like to make a jailable offense?
Okay.
This is a very unique niche thing that drives me up the wall, and I'm guilty of it from time to time. Mm-hmm. If you stick your arm in the elevator because you're that far behind, and you kind of join the elevator group, and you're kind of a little sorry, I held you guys up,
right? And
you click a floor that's the lowest of all the already pre-clicked floors. Shoot them in the back of the head. You already caused us to wait for you.
Yep.
And now you're coming on and you're picking a floor before mine, and you've already delayed me already.
Yeah.
Back of the head.
Okay.
Pay the consequences.
That's fair.
That drives me nuts. And I've done it, but I hate myself when I do it. Mm-hmm. But it's the most awkward feeling where they're looking at you you son of a bitch.
Honestly, another one is if I let you in, say we're in a line in traffic, right? We're bumper to bumper traffic, and you're merging into my lane. I let you in. If you do not keep up with the speed limit whenever we finally go.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
That one gets my blood boiling. And I drive a good amount every day, so
Colin is an hour commute. You guys should show him more love. He comes in every day from Narnia. Trey Dukes with a $20 super chat. Let's go, Trey Dukes. I kind of like the rivalry you got going here between the Dukes and the Grand Limousine. What if Trey Dukes has his own limousine company?
That would be insane.
These two are mortal enemies. I have to envision that they were once partners, and then one of them cheated on the other.
Oh.
And started their own rival company.
Yeah.
I have not. When was the last time you were in a limo?
I think it had to be for, I assume, prom.
Yeah.
Yeah, in high school.
We didn't do prom. We did homecoming.
Oh, okay.
What a ridiculous thing I signed my parents up to pay for every time.
Right.
We want a limo.
Yeah.
I have no money. You're paying my friend's mom who ordered it.
Yeah. We're all getting together.
I feel a little, I kind of want, I'd rather pay my parents back for that than college. Mm-hmm. The college is a much bigger investment, but that was a good investment.
Yeah.
Sophomore year limo, not needed.
It also kind of sets a bad precedent in your mind because you're hey, let's pay all this money for one good night.
Yeah.
Which is not really the most fun.
Okay. We're going to get into, we've just killed our viewership, I think. Mailbag next. Hashtag Falcons. Although this is the off season now. The draft is passed. I think it's more fun to have some banter.
Which, by the way, they brought it today.
This is actually your fault. This is not our fault. Are we ready to jump into a mailbag?
I think we are.
You know what? Grand Limousine. I've got a wedding in Atlanta at the start of June.
Oh.
I have a ride. I may just cancel the ride for Grand Limousine. I don't even know where point A and point B are. I am showing up. That's my job. Mm-hmm. But I may have to show up in Grand Limousine's limos.
That's right. He might have paid for your limousine ride.
I think I might have to do that.
He may have already done it, man.
Or at least get picked up from the wedding.
I'm just saying. Like, do we know what the bride and groom are taking?
I know nothing. This is my girlfriend's friends.
Gotcha.
I am simply there. I don't know. I know like 2 people there. And one of them is my girlfriend.
What are the odds? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
What are the odds?
Okay. Let's get into a mailbag before everyone leaves our video. So if you have any questions, #Falcons. For all the super chats we got, Colin, let's do this. If there's like an actual question in the super chat, we'll prioritize that. For all the other ones, like we'll put the in the mailbag. I still want you to get your screen time, but I don't think anyone's going to be like too just engaged and enthralled with Grand Limousine and the Dukes going back and forth in a battle. So we'll save those for the end. All right, let's jump into it. Let's get into a live mailbag. Mailbag time here on Falcons Today. We are filming this during our live show, by the way, which airs every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So come hang out with us next Thursday. But our first question comes in from Jacob42. Falcons tried to trade back into round 1 to select who? So, good question. Let me give you guys all the leaked information. You know the video that went viral in the draft of Terry Fontenot kind of talking Arthur Blank off a ledge? That wasn't about the Mecole Penix pick, which is actually very reassuring to hear that the GM and head coach didn't just go rogue behind the owner's back. That was about Atlanta trying to trade back up into round 1, and evidently it was with the New York Jets, who a video came out from their war room of their GM, Joe Douglas, on the phone going, that's the Atlanta Falcons trying to get up to 10. And ultimately, they were unsuccessful, clearly. But the guy they were targeting was UCLA edge rusher Laiatu Latu. So as much as I advocated and thought they'd go Dallas Turner at round 1, I don't think the accurate comparison to make is Dallas Turner in his rookie year to like Mecole Penix or anyone on that matter on the Falcons. I think you should be looking at Latu in year 1, because if the Falcons didn't go Penix, it looks like Latu would have been the pick at number 8. So let me ask you this question. Would you have traded the second round pick, 43? In my guess, it would have cost, at least this, 43 and a 2025 first to go to pick number 10. My guess is this is probably what Atlanta offered, and the Jets turned him down, which means the Falcons may have had to pony up a little bit more. And who knows what potential punishment could be coming for them for the Kirk Cousins alleged tampering. So maybe it's worth, it's a kangaroo court. Who knows what kind of punishment could be coming for the Falcons, and they may not have had a first-round pick next year, so that's why they wanted to trade it this year. Super chat coming in from JN. Thanks for mentioning Kaden Ellis at edge. I made a long post about it on your last video. Remember, he was drafted at edge, so he'll be a natural. So what JN is referring to is the video I put out with the updated depth charts where I offered my own suggestion, which is start Arnold Ebiketie, Troy Anderson, Nate Landman, and Kaden Ellis as your starting linebackers to get the best 4 linebackers on the field, which I think would be the best roster personnel, the best starting 4 combination. Matty Ghost, I used to bet against Illinois on my parlay cards. Paddock is a Ritter type but short, gets passes batted down a lot, throws a stupid INT. He won't make the team. Yeah, we can actually throw the Falcons quarterback depth chart on screen here. I thought Atlanta may, actually, it doesn't really matter. I could be the UDFA quarterback. They've got their top 2 quarterbacks in Kirk Cousins and, of course, now Mecole Penix. So lucky-ish for Taylor Heinicke. There's not more serious competition behind him. But Heinicke went from being the backup to fighting for a roster spot and will likely be on the practice squad if they don't give 3 quarterbacks a spot on the 53-man roster. Diego, what do you think of trading for an offensive tackle? There's bigger needs, so we would probably need to wait on that, but we could probably use somebody better than McGarry to protect Penix's blind side. Let's throw up Caleb McGarry's pass blocking or run blocking stats from last year, Cullen. I'm going to push back on the idea of Caleb McGarry not being good to block Mecole Penix's blind side. One, I don't think we're going to see Mecole Penix be a routine starter for this team anytime soon unless Kirk Cousins gets injured. But I'm actually going to disagree that he's not a good blindside protector for Mecole Penix. I don't think that should be the reason to move on from Caleb McGarry. Because his pass blocking last year was 6. Oh, I beg your pardon. No, we're on the same wavelength. I got my brain twisted. Yes, Caleb McGarry would not be a good fit for the Kirk Cousins-led offense. That's what I'm going for here, because he's a run-blocking guy first. 76.5 PFF grade last year. His pass blocking, 69.5. Nice, but not really that good. So if Atlanta is serious about being a pass-first offense compared to the run-first offense they were under Arthur Smith, then Caleb McGarry is not the ideal fit. Although I don't think they're going to make any changes or adjustments because it's a little late for that now and they are kind of stuck. But it's not a bad place to be stuck in. You can have a much worse starting tackle. Although I don't think Caleb McGarry will be someone that Atlanta views as a long-term fit for a pass-first offense with Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix. Sorry for disagreeing with you initially. I got my numbers all mixed up. Archangel, was it really the right choice to let Jeff Okudah go, or should we have let Richie Grant walk instead? Richie Grant was not a free agent, so that would be cutting Richie Grant. Jeff Okudah last year was benched towards the end of the season. I wish him the best in Houston, although I don't think it was the worst decision to let that unfold. I think Richie Grant is going to be this team's safety number 3 behind DeMarco Hellams and Jesse Bates. So it wasn't a decision of one or the other. Here's what I think the starting top 5 in the secondary could look like for the Falcons. But I think you're fine to have Bates and Hellams and Grant be the 3 safety trio because Bates is so good by himself that him alone makes this a top 10 safety room. And Hellams, I think, showed us a lot of potential in just his first year in the NFL. Now, before we go to the rest of the questions you guys have for me today, if you want to get a Michael Penix jersey or a Kirk Cousins jersey, we have them both for you guys, but just go to chatsports.com/cousins or /Penix. I put both of those links in the comments and description of today's video. But if you want to get yourself a brand new Falcons jersey and you want to have it be the quarterback, go to get one of these links down below in the comment section. Next question rolling in from Is Villa. What are the odds we are competitors this year? And if they are low, when are we looking to be true competitors? This year or after this year or many years to come? This is like a question that I feel like is being typed with a lot of fear in the keyboard. I think Atlanta's going to be competitors this year. They were 7-10 last year, and they upgraded dramatically at the quarterback position from Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke to Kirk Cousins. That alone, I think, is like a war of like 2 wins, where you can go from 7-10 to 9-8, and 9-8 is a playoff team in a 7-team playoff. So I think Atlanta will be competitors this year to make the playoffs. The bigger question, and not to get ahead of my skis here, would be, are they playoff contenders? Like, are we talking about just showing up to the dance or going deep into the dance? And if they are to win the NFC South and host a playoff game, we saw how well that worked out for the Bucs last year. That got them a win over the Eagles. So who's to say Atlanta can't ride the hometown high and bring playoff football back to ATL for the first time in a long time and run on that momentum? So I believe the Atlanta Falcons will be a playoff team in 2024. Justin Brigham, do you believe the reason Cousins wasn't let in on the Penix pick sooner is because he has already shown he can't keep information to himself after dropping the ball in his signing press conference? No, I don't think that was the reason. I think it's just the human element of, personally, if I'm breaking bad news to someone, I like to do the bad news breaking as close to the event as possible to limit the amount of awkward time between the news being delivered and the event happening, right? If I tell someone I can't go to their birthday and I tell them a month in advance, I've got a month of awkwardness. If I tell them a day before, I just cut that awkwardness down in half, by much more than half. So I think this is just them not wanting to have an awkward conversation. Plus, it's not really Kirk Cousins' business. He's a player. They're GMs. He's there to play football. They're there to pick players. Sure, there's a human element that goes on between. And to be honest with you, I think that draft pick fractured Terry Fontenot, Raheem Morris, and his agent McCartney's relationship. Or maybe down the line, you don't see McCartney do a lot of homework to help his clientele get jobs with the Falcons and prioritize other teams instead. And that's a very real thing in the NFL, where GMs and agents have broken relationships because of stuff like this, and that could screw a team or a player over. But I don't think this was because of the press conference slip-up. clout on us or clout on twos. Is there any chance of us getting Justin Simmons? I don't think it's a 0% chance. My guess is Justin Simmons, when he was released by the Broncos right before free agency started, had a number in mind. And it was probably a fair number because he's led the NFL in interceptions since 2016. Let's say that number is $15 million, just picking a round number. Well, as free agency has progressed, he knows that teams have spent a lot of their money and cash is drying up, and he's running out of time. That's what he's going up against, time, the start of the season. So maybe that $15 million has decreased to a number where the Atlanta Falcons are like, you know what? We didn't love you for 15 because we felt like we could better use our money elsewhere, and we felt like Richie Grant, DeMarco Hellams were adequate for what we're paying them. But if you're only going to cost us $7 million, we're not going to turn you down for $7 million because Justin Simmons for $7 million is better than Richie Grant, DeMarco Hellams compared to Justin Simmons for $15 million and then DeMarco Hellams and Richie Grant. So there is definitely a chance, although I don't think it's a very high chance. Sammy Lewis, we should trade for Parsons. The Cowboys are in salary hell, so I think we should trade for him and pay him Nick Bosa money. We talked about Micah Parsons trade potentially. I think this could happen next offseason. If the Dallas Cowboys are serious about being all in, as Jerry Jones put it, for 2024, they're not trading a top 5 defender in football. But if 2024 ends with another early playoff departure and they're going to let Dak Prescott walk in free agency and they paid CeeDee Lamb and they don't have the money to pay, well, they would have the money at that point because Dak is gone, but they want to get picks to start a rebuild so they could draft a quarterback. Maybe they trade Micah Parsons, but I would be shell-shocked. Of all the blockbuster trades that have happened in the last 2 or 3 years, like Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Devontae Adams, this one would take the cake if it happened tomorrow. Jason Greenway, are there any free agent wide receivers that you think we could bring in? Use code CLNS. We can look at the top 10 remaining free agents in my eyes. I think Tyler Boyd is probably the best of the bunch. Hunter Renfrow, I think, could fit a good positional need for Atlanta, which is a slot wide receiver. Russell Gage, unfortunately, he missed all of last year with a torn ACL, if I remember correctly, from the training camp. Zay Jones, DJ Chark, not interested really in OBJ or Michael Thomas. I just think they're names at this point. I don't think they're serious contributors to any offense. But I would go with either Boyd, if by the time you're watching this he's still available, Boyd, Renfrow, Gage, or Zay Jones. Super chat rolling in from Grand Limousine. Petey, thanks for bringing us all things Falcons. Just like Grand Limousine, you are the greatest. Love the compliment to yourself, Grand Limousine. You are the greatest. Trey Dukes, still the best Falcons content on YouTube, though. Appreciate you, Trey. It's always fun to have a nice back and forth. We may not see eye to eye, but I'm always going to try to give you guys at least a little bit of reasoning for my opinions. Grand Limousine, Petey and Colin for president. Yeah, I think a lot of the country would rally around that right now. But that will do it for us on today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really appreciate everyone who watches all the way to the end of the videos. If you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and sub today. Hunter Renfrow most likely joining the Saints. Not a bad comp, like because Derek Carr is down there. Not a bad idea, that's for sure. I think that's got some legs to it. All right. Ooh, I like this. So this person didn't use hashtag Falcons, but remember earlier I said I had to give credit where credit is due. Yep. Do you think moving to a 3-4 defense this season, we have better results or a mistake? Well, they were a 3-4 defense last year, but I think maybe you're trying to ask move to a 4-3 defense, which let's throw up the front five for a moment. Yep. This could have some merit to it. It's a major change, and a lot of it is set in stone because they made personnel decisions based on their defensive scheme of being a 3-4. But if you went to a 4-3, I think you may have better success based on how this roster is constructed. Like, you could get Zach Harrison, David Onyemata, Grady Jarrett, Rook Ororo on the field, and have Bralen Trice. No, you could have Arnold Ebiketie, David Onyemata, count it out with me, Grady Jarrett, and Rook Ororo on the field at once. Zach Harrison, Contavious Street, and Bralen Trice all in rotation. It's kind of getting some of your best guys on the field at once. Ebiketie, and you only have a true Trice, I think, is still maybe Trice, the other defensive end spot. No, Harrison, the other defensive end spot. And then Onyemata and Jarrett in the middle. I don't hate that. I don't know. Just spitballing here. All right, if you guys have some more questions, though, hashtag Falcons or Super Chat. If we get some more Super Chats, we'll stay live and hang out with you guys. Otherwise, we will sign off because it's a busy day at Chat Sports here. Tomorrow is like a Chat Sports holiday to reward our efforts from the draft. So a lot of people are trying to get some content in before packing up for a 3-day weekend. So I am very well prepared to do an at-home video this weekend because I am sure some news will break while I am enjoying my 3 days off.
Yeah, I will be here at least tomorrow. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, Colin got the end of the shaft. That was bullshit. I felt bad for Colin. Okay, Hillman. It should be Kirk needs to buy in or move to the side. I think Kirk has been pretty much a pro about this.
Yeah.
Who was the one quarterback? Aaron Rodgers. I thought Rodgers was okay with the love thing.
There was some.
Who was the quarterback that's like, I'm not here to help him?
That was
Who was that?
Oh,
it was like 2 years ago.
Yep.
Which quarterback? I know it. Who was it?
Yep.
They're like, I'm not here to help them.
Yep. Yep. I remember that exact quote.
Who was this? They said like, yes.
Oh my God. I'm surprised it wasn't Rodgers, to be honest, but it wasn't. It
no.
Was, I'm not here to help them.
Was it Carson Wentz? No, I don't think it was Wentz.
No, it wasn't Wentz. Who the heck was it? Hold on. I'm not here to help him.
I'm not here to help him. Ryan Tannehill with Will Levis.
Yep.
Let's go. Ryan Tannehill with Will Levis. And that was a second-round pick.
Yep. Which is pretty insane.
Yep. Hello, Jeffrey.
Hello.
Mr. Cooperstein hanging out with here. Oh, no cards here.
No cards.
The producer that just popped in, Jeffrey Cooperstein, was the OG Falcons channel handler.
I was.
Yeah, back in the Thomas Mott days.
Yes.
Yeah, shout out Mott.
Shout out.
Yeah. Okay. If we get some more super chats, we'll continue hanging out. Otherwise, we'll let you guys get back to your Thursday evenings.
Yeah. Tannehill immediately walked that back. Said, no disrespect.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's out of a job right now.
Yeah.
I think he's probably done.
Oh, by the way, it was apparently it was to Malik Willis, not Will Levis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
MortonToNFL.com at least.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think it's my job to mention it. I'm talking about third round pick Malik Willis. There you go. We learned something today, or remembered something.
Not a very nice thing to say.
No, not at all. And Malik, I mean, let's face it. You want to talk about a quarterback that had so much smoke about him potentially going first round?
Oh my gosh, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, I remember Seattle was high in that draft, and there was rumors that they could potentially go out.
That's when they got Charles Cross,
Yep.
right? Like number 9 overall.
Yeah, and there was potential rumors and everything. I was just like, I really don't know. Like, I guess, but like, I was not ever really sold on that move. And well, I think however many years now into his career, I think it's.
I'll tell you what. You guys want a free little like prospect draft planning tip? Quarterbacks only. If you have to sell yourself on a quarterback because of YouTube highlight reel,
Yeah, exactly.
they're not your guy.
Exactly.
Because everyone's got highlights. And highlights can be great for wide receivers.
Mm.
But quarterbacks play more than just, like, wide receivers can make 4 grabs a game and have it be a good day.
Yep.
Quarterbacks are going to throw the ball 35 times.
Yep.
You cannot sell yourself on a highlight reel for a quarterback.
No.
Because there are lots of other plays that quarterbacks make that aren't supposed to be big highlight plays, but to help keep the offense on pace.
Yep.
So if you ever find yourself in the future debating a quarterback and you're like, I don't know if I like this guy or not, should I have my team draft him? And you find yourself letting a highlight 4-minute video on YouTube with like Eminem soundtrack in the background,
Or like some kind of rap.
or Fort Minor.
Yeah.
If that's the final decision, I'll tell you right now,
Stay away.
it's on the other side of the fence.
Stay away.
Yep.
Stay away.
All right, we will sign off. I really appreciate everyone for hanging out with us. To all of our super chatters,
seriously.
you guys are the best. Thank you so much.
$130.
Yeah, what a fun Thursday.
That is an awesome Thursday. Shout out to all y'all.
We'll end with this one from Mr. Glover. How many Pro Bowlers do we have this year, or who makes it from our roster? I'll go from like front to back, like offense. I could see Kirk Cousins making a Pro Bowl
In a weaker NFC quarterback conference, yeah.
Even plus, there's always like alternates that make it.
Yeah.
Bijan.
Yep.
Guys that could make it.
Yeah.
Bijan. I think Drake London could make a Pro Bowl. That shouldn't be a bold take.
It's probably as an alternate because there are.
I agree.
Because you got Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nakua, who else? Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah,
Debo.
a lot. Okay.
There's a lot. CD Lamb.
That was unnecessary.
I know. I'm sorry.
You went overboard there.
I really did. I'm sorry.
Kyle Pitts, maybe.
Maybe.
Um,
Yeah, that's true.
Chris Lindstrom on the offensive line.
Yep.
Defensive, Grady Jarrett. Especially like Aaron Donald was in the NFC anyway, but defensive tackles are like tough to come by. Grady Jarrett. I don't think any of the linebackers are Pro Bowl guys. Sorry. AJ Terrell and Jesse Bates. Terrell kind of needs to have a bit more of like a ball skill season. That's how corners are evaluated for Pro Bowls. Do you have interceptions or not? So he's got to get back to that element of his game. But that will do it for us. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you all later.